Well, when it comes to it, it's what people want. And in some sense, and not terribly precise is it, but the distribution of power between such individuals and the circumstances then result in the policy chosen. You can influence what people want, of course, and the media, public media, tends to do that. Your presence does it. What you say and what you don't say. What it's believed you believe in, as opposed to what perhaps you actually believe in, but your actions and so on. There's a huge complex, it seems, of what determines what you want. And then in the politico-sociological arena, your society responds accordingly, according to what we might in hindsight assume was your power to influence and determine the way society goes. There may be some necessity of survival that implies that unless your society takes certain courses of action, it doesn't last very long. Only societies that do take certain courses of action may be privileged with ongoing existence and influence. You might reason from such what principles are therefore conducive to long-run survival, say, of your society. You're probably more interested in what changes are going to affect your more personal concerns, your future life and that of those around you and the society, what your society allows you to do and so on. It's not the case then that people are necessarily following principles, except where the principles seem to support what they at present want. It's not a question of principle. In the long run, the continual existence of the society may turn on meeting certain conditions, one of which might be avoiding too many wars that somehow destroy the fabric of the society. But to follow, say, a principle of never going to war might mean that you are overrun by a nation that has a completely different policy anyway. So you might choose to go to war in some cases, just as you might be against violence, but choose violence in some cases to protect your family and perhaps your own life. You might in some sense generally follow the notion that people should be free to express their opinions, unless you personally feel that such opinions are what we might classify as hate speech. And you might want to draw a line at that. Breach of the principle, you might say. Yeah, not a problem. The principle is only accepted because I find it acceptable. And in as far as I do find it acceptable, I support it. And where I don't find it acceptable to be applied, I don't support the principle. Do I want certain principles to be built into some constitution of the society? I might not. I might want to influence such, change such. I might be successful. I might not. Some may manipulate situations such that they are in a powerful position to determine future constitutional rules and laws in general and so forth. And I might agree with this, therefore let it happen. I might disagree with this and do what I can to stop it materializing. It will depend on what I want and what you want. And the outcome will depend on what we all want one way and another, and our ability to influence such, and our willingness to influence such. All of which can be affected by any number of things. So as man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath for man, so laws and the applying to principles are made for man, not man to assent to the laws. Although, of course, he may well find them binding, in which case it would be foolish to take a freedom that's not being granted, where there's a heavy penalty for doing so. A penalty that outweighs what you see as the benefit of taking your freedom. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. So, where you have a freedom, obviously you should use it to purpose of what you think is good and right. Where you don't have a freedom, where you shouldn't battle against the impossible, you don't have the freedom. To assume that you have is just nonsense and a very bad outcome. You're not required to do what you cannot achieve, what you cannot do. Of course there are uncertainties, things are not crisp, but broadly speaking, that's the rationality of things. Neither God nor man should be irrational, of course. It would be a nonsense, by definition. Your society may have been, for instance, democratic, but it may have resulted in many things that you don't like. And it may change from being democratic against your will. Yeah, well, it may. You may find freedoms vanish, and you may not find that it puts right what was wrong. Perhaps under any system you end up with a power elite that really rules, and a population that has to follow. Some systems may be more acceptable than others. Western democracy might give a good impression of acceptability to its people. Equally, Eastern communism can give the impression to its people that in being on committees at every level of decision making, they're being heard and it's being considered and taken into account. Neither may be a reality in practice. You know, whether you had wealthy Indian Rajas and the bulk of the population poor, or whether you have 21st century Western entrepreneurial multi-billionaires and the bulk of the population oppressed by financial and economic situation. Injustice and wars may continue. Regardless, it's a world of good and evil. that you might know, come to learn the difference and know of a surety which you will follow for eternity. Eternity is long, whereas the present in this world for life is very short. God has our priorities.